we have in front of us, let me briefly say something about what the structure of this session looks like. We're going to tell you a little bit about the course and share some of the experiences of what it's like to be on the MLF program. We're going to talk a little bit about the rules around the deposit and around deferrals. And then we have a bunch of Q&A questions that you've sent to us. But by all means, at that point, you should feel free to come in with any questions you might have about the program, about what it's like to be on the program, about career development afterwards, or anything else really that comes to mind. So I guess we dive straight in. If at any point, by the way, you have a question, please raise your hand and we will give you an opportunity to ask that question. As I said, there will also be an opportunity to ask any remaining questions towards the end of the session. So I propose that only if you have a clarification question, you ask it now, and all the other questions, more general Q&A, we'll cover towards the end. All right, so first let me say something about the team. The MLF team is quite unique, particularly for legal master's degrees, because it has members of the faculty from 2 schools within the university. So the team on the MLF is comprised of law professors based at the Faculty of Law who would ordinarily also teach on the BCL MJUR and on other courses offered by the law faculty, and by professors from the Said Business School who would ordinarily teach on, for example, the MBA or the Masters in Financial Economics. We have 1 course director, an academic director. This year, that's me. Next year, that will be Professor Luca Enriquez, who is the Professor of Corporate Law here at Oxford. And the academic director's role is to oversee the overall cohesion of the program. In addition to that Oxford-based team of members of the faculty, we also have visiting professors. And visiting professors can be from other leading law schools. For example, we have visiting professors from Columbia Law School this year. But they can also be leading practitioners who are spending a year or more with us to help teach the courses and to share their expertise from practice. And we use quite a few of these leading visiting practitioners throughout the MLF program because we feel it's very important to share and bring in that sort of view of practice to ground the more theoretical perspectives offered in the course. On top of that, on top of that team from the faculty, you also benefit from the presence of an MLF advisory board. So the advisory board, of course, advises us who are running the program, but they also advise you and they help you. So people who are on the advisory board are generally industry leaders. They're senior partners at law firms. They lead private equity outfits. They work in senior positions in banking, sometimes in government. And interestingly, for your purposes, there are also MLF alumni on the board who continue to be involved with the program long after they have graduated and want to share their experience with us on the team and with all of you on the course. This MLF advisory board comes in at many points during the year. They share careers advice, they help with the delivery of the core teaching, and they're generally available for you to talk to as you try to shape your own journey throughout Oxford and beyond. And it's a huge, huge resource to have access to these very senior and very expert people. Next year, there will be some slight changes to the team because I will be on sabbatical during the spring of the next academic year. And John Armour, who is the Professor of Law and Finance at Oxford, is serving as the Dean of the Faculty of Law and will not be teaching as much as he usually does and may not be teaching at all during the MLF program. So that is the MLF team. You can find more information about the MLF team on the website, the MLF website sub-website on the Faculty of Law's website has links to all the profiles of all the members of the faculty and to all the members of the advisory board. Then, of course, we have our dedicated MLF administrative team, and it's a huge luxury to have this team. You'll notice that straight away as soon as you arrive in Oxford, that you'll be in excellent hands for all of your questions and for all of your concerns. You've met the team now. It's Charlotte, Ellie, and Catherine, and they will be your first point of contact within the faculty. The MLF, of course, is a program that sits between the Faculty of Law and the Saïd Business School. So sometimes it can be a bit complicated to find your way and make sure that you're in touch with the right person. And that's what this team is here for. They also help with organizing all the MLF specific events, all the career sessions. So they're really your go-to resource throughout the year. And as you may have noticed, at least for those of you who have been in touch with the faculty to ask any questions, there's always they are really the point of contact for all of you. So it's really a really good experience in terms of always knowing where you can go if you have any questions or if you have any concerns. That's the MLF team for you. Let me then turn and say something about the core course structure. So you may have seen this already on the MLF website, but I think it's valuable to just briefly run through it. The MLF has sort of 4 components. There is a pre-sessional component, and then there are 3 terms throughout the academic year. So the pre-sessional component is unusual for Oxford-based courses. Most courses do not have this, but we think it's important for all the students on the MLF to start the academic year with a certain baseline of mathematical, finance, and accounting insights. And so we have these pre-course trainings in maths and in financial reporting. That is what we call the induction program. The induction program also includes sessions on careers, because you cannot, as you will soon realize, you cannot start early enough with thinking about your careers, with applying for jobs, applying for internships, because some of the deadlines, unfortunately, are already in October. So by the time you get to Oxford, you'll have to go straight away into the mode of thinking about your next step, which is a little bit unusual and perhaps unpleasant, but it's necessary given the way the job market is structured. So we want to offer you straight out of the gate all the advice that you need to navigate that landscape successfully and in an informed manner. So the pre-sessional courses are complemented with sessions on careers. What is really great about these pre-sessional courses is that the whole cohort will be spending a lot of time together during the first 2 weeks of being in Oxford. And that means you get to know each other very quickly. And it means that for the remainder of the year, you tend to form, but maybe the MLF students can say something more about that in a bit, but you tend to form quite a close-knit group. That's really a sort of a byproduct of having that pre-sessional course. Now, at the end of that pre-sessional course, you start with the actual academic year. And in Oxford, the academic year has 3 terms, each lasting for 8 weeks and separated by some weeks in between. And the terms have unusual names. So we have Michaelmas term, that's the first term. We have Hilary term, that's the second term, the winter term. And we have Trinity term, the third and final term, and that is the spring term, which has just started. We start in Michaelmas term, in the first term, with 2 of the core courses of the MLF program. The first is First Principles of Financial Economics, which brings you up to speed with financial economics and gives you kind of a core understanding of the analytical tools that this perspective, that this approach offers, and also helps you reflect on how the financial economics toolkit is relevant for the kinds of problems that the MLF studies. You will also start a second core course, which is the finance course. And both the First Principles of Financial Economics course and the finance course are taught by colleagues of Saïd Business School. So the courses are very similar in substance to what you would get if you, for example, were to take an MBA. If you take a law elective, you have to take a law elective on the side. The law electives are the law courses that would normally be on offer as part of the BCL or the MJUR graduate programs at the Faculty of Law. Not all the law electives start in Michaelmas term. but many of them do. So if you take a law elective that starts in Michaelmas term, that's your third course during that term. Now, on top of your compulsory law course, you can take either one more law course in case you take the law stream, or you can take the finance stream. If you take the law stream, then the second course may either also start in Michaelmas term or only in Hilary term. If you take the finance stream, your finance courses, the additional finance courses, will only start in Hilary term. And that's quite helpful because by the time you get to the Hilary term coursework, you'll already have a pretty solid foundation because of the first principles of financial economics course and because of the finance course in these subjects. So you'll be able to join in these courses with MBAs, with MFE, so Masters in Financial Economics students, and participate on that level. Once we then get to the Hilary term, you have wrapped up first principles of financial economics. Your finance course and your law electives, they may still be continuing or they may just kick off. And your finance stream courses may start, but on top of that, a new law and economics of corporate transaction course also kicks off. That's the third core course of the program. And the law and economics of corporate transaction course really acts as kind of the fulcrum of the MLF program. It combines a lot of the insights that you'll learn in financial economics, in finance, and in the legal courses that you might take, and it applies that knowledge in an integrated way to corporate transactions like private equity transactions, and more broadly to M&A transactions, but also to, for example, bailouts and all kinds of other major financial transactions that you might end up spending your time on throughout the rest of your career. So it really brings together these perspectives and gives you that integrated analytical toolkit, which in the second half of that course will be applied to 6 real-life case studies that are run with practitioners from around the world, primarily from London, where you bring these skills into practice. That happens in the Trinity term part of that course. So as is obvious at this point, by the time you get to Trinity term, you'll have learned a lot. You'll have completed some of the core courses. You have completed first principles of financial economics, your finance course. You'll still be in the second half of the law and economics of corporate transactions course. You'll start your second finance stream elective after having finished the first. And depending again on which law electives you take, you will either be finishing them up or you'll be heading into your last term of the law course. That is roughly the structure. Exams take place for the law courses all the way at the end of the year. For the core courses, they take place either for first principles of financial economics at the end of the first term, or in the case of finance, throughout the year, throughout the course. And in the case of law and economics of corporate transactions, you have weekly assignments and a big take-home exam that takes place in Trinity term. That's the structure of the course. I just want to pause here and see if there are any questions about that core structure or any comments from the current cohort. So I don't see any questions yet. Is there anyone from the current MLF cohort who wants to comment on, what it's been like to go through the course up to the point where we're now, which is at the start of Trinity term? Lauren.
I'm happy to speak to this. I remember sitting in the session last year and being a little bit confused by the setup of the course. Especially with the option between the finance stream and the law stream, and what would be better or a better fit for me. And I will say that by the end of the session, I felt a lot more comfortable about the course structure. But also just know that, when you arrive and you actually start going or getting into the course, it does become a lot clearer. And I know Tom introduced the core admin team to you earlier, but they're also all completely fantastic. And it's so nice to have the dedicated team of people looking after you. So sort of any questions I had around whether this elective was going to be available and whether I could do these two things together, I sent those all across when I arrived, and I just got really helpful responses from the team. In terms of what it's actually been like on the course, I've enjoyed all the courses so far. I definitely think the pre-course stuff, the 2 weeks before the term starts, is really great, really helpful to bringing everyone up to speed. As Tom mentioned, there is stuff you have to do to prepare for that. And I think I'm going to speak about this a little bit later, but I would really urge you to do that preparation. And yeah, all of the courses have been fascinating. What drew me towards the MLF was really this intersection between law, economics, and finance, and watching how each of the courses that form part of the MLF sort of come together to give you this holistic understanding has been amazing. Yeah, so really enjoying the course so far.
Thank you, Lauren. That's a very helpful perspective. And what is really important to appreciate when you're, deciding on whether to come to Oxford for the MLF or not is that you have this core course structure, but being at Oxford really is an experience that is much more holistic than that. So I just briefly want to flag a few other things that you can consider part of the Oxford experience. So in addition to the core course schedule that you'll have, you'll also be able to attend all kinds of lectures and workshops. In particular, in the law faculty, we host weekly business law workshops, which feature the latest research from leading researchers around the world who come in to present their work. And all the MLF students are welcome to join for those workshops. We also have frequent practitioner lectures in all kinds of fields, both in the law faculty and in the business school, and in fact also all around the university that you can attend. There are constant career events and constant sort of a stream of presentations from experts who represent perspectives from different career trajectories, be it private sector, law, private equity, or banking, or asset management, or other fields, but also government perspectives, regulatory perspectives, NGO perspectives, and academic perspectives, of course, on what your career's trajectory might look like. And in the case of the MLF specific careers events, we draw very heavily on our extremely diverse and extremely successful alumni body who can offer perspectives from many career paths and from all around the world. Oxford also benefits from having a very rich life of academic society. So I listed a few of them: the FinTech and Legal Tech Society at the Faculty of Law, the Sustainable Finance Student Society, various mooting groups. There are many student societies around the university as well. Think about the Oxford Union, which is the university's famous debating society, which also hosts various speaker events, political associations, theater and music groups, and so on. There's a rich college life as well, which is, of course, quite unique to Oxford and to Cambridge, because you're not just a member of the Faculty of Law and the Saïd Business School, but you'll also be a member of a college. And that college kind of has the function of being, in a way, your social family. You can have dinners there, you can have parties there, you have a sort of living room, which we call the middle common room, at the college, and all kinds of other facilities, from gyms and libraries to a bar and a garden to relax in. So college life is a really big part of the Oxford social life. And then, of course, there are sports. So in Oxford, you have varsity sports. These are sports where you compete with other universities on behalf of the University of Oxford, but you also have all kinds of competitions between the various colleges, and also non-competitive sports. Rowing is, of course, the famous example for many, but there are many other sports on offer as well. And there is much, much more that in total, on top of the academic program, really shapes your experience at Oxford. And I just wanted to give an opportunity to some of the students who are here to share their experience of what it's been like beyond the academic schedule. And maybe Guilherme, do you want to kick off?
Absolutely. I can, sorry, I can really second everything that Tom said. Right now, I'm in my college, one of the rooms in my college. You can see this big paddling board over there. I mean, you have a very rich college life and really informs pretty much every aspect of your life. It's a lot of fun, and it's really just, complements the whole academic experience. Myself, I work very closely in the intersection between finance and empowering environmental claims. And right off the bat, you're gonna find that once you arrive here, a few weeks later, you have the Freshers Fair, which is just this very big fair where we presented to a bunch of different academic societies, sports societies, and everything that Tom described. I got involved with the Sustainable Finance Student Society, which is listed on the slide, and it was so far really, really interesting. I'm one of the committee members, so we organize events with practitioners that work on this space. We also organize academic readings. We organize fireside chats, sometimes just really like light events that help you, get to know this space and get to interact with people that are actively working in the industry or in academia. So this is just one aspect of one particular niche thing that I really like, and I found it here. And I'm really glad that I did. I've also engaged with my college a lot, so I usually go out with people here in the MCR and hang around. We have lots of drinks and sometimes very heavily needed after some exams or some like very, you find that here the MLF is really intense. So you need some off time as well. And in general, also I cannot say too much to sports. I've been moving less than I was supposed to recently. And as well, I could also say about lectures and workshops. Today, we had someone coming from University of Chicago to talk about a paper at the law faculty. Every Wednesday, there's the business law workshops, which are really, really, really interesting. Again, I just feel like the diversity here, it's enormous. You can do pretty much, I mean, any area that you find interest in, you're gonna find someone or something happening here. And that's something that really was transformative for me, aside from the fact that I was actually coming to study law and finance.
Thank you, Guilherme. Kishan, do you want to add your perspective?
Sure. So I totally agree with Tom and Wilhelm on the fact that the program has a lot to offer to the prospective students. Specifically, I feel like because it's an intersection where you are working with the law faculty, with the SAD Business School, with your college, the entire cohort of your college, and then the university generally. So it's like a place where you are interacting with 4 different departments and set of people, which really gives you an exposure of experiencing different nationalities, culture, and also events, because like there's always something or the other happening in Oxford, and it's not enough to I feel like having 365 days in a year is also not enough to attend everything that is happening in the university. But other than that, I feel like I can talk specifically about the FinTech and Legal Tech Society because I'm a committee member of it. And the society is really into organizing events and seminars which are at the intersection of law and technology. We recently had a session, in fact, with a Cornell professor and a representative of the Custodia Bank, which saw immense participation from the student community. We are also working on some of the projects, like we are working with the Ministry of Justice of Georgia on a digital academy of legal tech. So it's like a platform where we can coordinate and indulge with different sort of stakeholders all across the globe. And that's something which I think Oxford really provides you. It's definitely a platform where you can build on in different areas of expertise that you want to specialize in.
Thank you. Ekaterina, do you want to add something to that?
I have something to add. As Guilherme and Kishan have already told, everyone may find whatever he or she interested in it. Any society, for example, in my perspective, I found a social tennis society and became an active member here. Also, regarding lectures and workshops, I want to mention about Finance Lab and asset management master classes, which might be useful for some who consider finance stream. Regarding Finance Lab, the invitation to join this course will be posted really soon. I think that in June or July. And for me, it was quite useful experience, just because I had a perspective that I will choose a private equity specialization. But also I know that some students were not too happy with that just because they had some other preferences. This course is quite challenging, so you have to think about before join finance lab. Also, I should mention about some societies, which is in side business school. For example, I try to cooperate with MBA and MFE students and actively participate in the activities as well. For example, some random chats, random coffees, which was quite interesting experience for me as well, just because they're from quite diverse experience. Yeah, maybe, I don't know, Lauren wants something to add.
Lauren, do you want to wrap up this part?
Sure. I can also, I mentioned, so I was part of I am part of the Salsa Dancing Society, maybe on a bit of a less academic note, but I really enjoy that. It's lots of fun. I also am a member of the Oxford Union, where we have the most incredible speakers from all over the world, normally 2 a week, as well as a very interesting debate topic once a week. Honestly, there's so much available from an extracurricular perspective that the hardest part is really just picking what you want to get involved in, because you could run yourself into the ground trying to do everything that Oxford has to offer. Yeah, also culturally, just a really amazing place. The other thing that I've really enjoyed doing is going to watch a whole lot of classical music performances. Again, that schedule is almost like, I would say 3-4 times a week, there's a performance you can go and watch for free, or, you know, for some like nominal amount of money. And they're just world-class performers. So that's also something I've really enjoyed doing during my time here.
Thank you, Lauren. So it's a really rich experience coming to Oxford, and a very global one. So what is beautiful about the MLF program is that usually we have about 27 different nationalities represented on a cohort of about 45. So it's an incredibly global MSc program, but it's embedded within an even more global university. And what is beautiful about the experience in Oxford, and I think some of these stories that you've just heard exemplify that, is that the world comes to Oxford. And so being in Oxford really gives you an incredibly rich, in a holistic sense, an incredibly rich experience throughout the year. One of our alumni summed it up like this. You may have seen the quote on our website already. She said that living in Oxford was one of the most intense experiences I've had. It was fascinating, challenging, and overwhelming at once. It was a place where every day I was challenged with learning new things, developing skills, meeting interesting and inspiring people, and having profound conversations about law, the economy, and politics. It was the best year of my life. So it's by no means a year that is easy. It is a challenging year. It can at some points feel overwhelming. And when it feels overwhelming, there's a whole team as well as a very supportive cohort of fellow students to help you. But ultimately, it is an incredibly enriching year. And it is not just this graduate who describes the MLF as the best year of their life. In fact, judging by the incredible engagement with our alumni going back now almost 14 years, it is a transformative experience for many of the people who have taken this course. Then, after having talked about the course, I want to say something about the deposit and the deferrals, because I know that that's a topic that is close, that is on the mind of many on this call. So the first thing we should say about the deposit is it is non-refundable in principle. And the reason that we have a deposit is that the course is incredibly competitive to get to. Every year, many, many more qualified students apply than we can give places to. And the reason we have the deposit is that we want to make sure that those who commit to come to Oxford actually come to Oxford and do not at the last minute step away from coming to Oxford and thereby hold the spot of someone else who could have taken their place. So it's really to make sure that we do not leave places unfilled, given the number of students who'd like to take that place. There are some exceptions, however, to the non-refundability, because we recognize that in some circumstances, your inability to attend the course after you have paid the deposit could be beyond your control. So here we list those exceptions. Within 14 days of accepting your offer, we accept the withdrawal of acceptance in case something has come up, for example, that you hadn't anticipated. If you fail to meet one or more of your academic conditions, we're also refunding or willing to refund the deposit if you can provide evidence of the relevant examination. And the same holds true for the required English language course. If you do not manage to attain those scores, that can be a reason to refund the deposit. If your visa application is refused for whatever reason, that too will be a reason to refund the deposit. And of course, if there are unforeseen personal circumstances that prevent you from taking up your place, think about a serious illness or a bereavement, then we also consider refunding the deposit. So many of you asked about this. I hope this gives clarity to what the policy position is and also why we have this policy in place. Many of you have also asked about deferrals. And that is really something that we only allow in exceptional circumstances. So it would have to be a set of circumstances outside of your control that prevent you from taking up the place. And it would have to be a serious unforeseen circumstance. So think about serious ill health or again, a bereavement. We understand that these rules may come across as being a little bit harsh, but we hope you understand that given the enormous appetite for people to take up a place here and the limited number of places available, that we have to take measures like this to offer the maximum number of students the opportunity to take this course. Then, finally, we received quite a few questions from you, and we have cataloged them here. We'll go over questions around pre-arrival advice, the course content and the structure, careers, and funding, and if you will, the Oxford experience. If, however, you have any other questions that are not covered on these two slides, please feel free to raise your hand and we'll create a queue of questions and I would be very, very happy to answer them. So for now, we're running through these questions and hopefully that also gives you an opportunity to think of any questions if you have them. So starting with the pre-arrival advice. The first question was about recommendations on how to best prepare. And the second question is around recommendations to best prepare if you're an international student. Now, since most students on the MLF are international, I think we can bundle these two questions and answer them in one go. And Lauren, I wondered if you could do that.
Sure. So in terms of recommendations on how best to prepare, I would say the obvious starting point is to properly and thoroughly work through the preparation workbooks that you'll be sent, specifically with respect to the maths pre-course, the 2-week maths pre-course. I think there was kind of a huge range of maths level in our cohort. Some people had quite extensive experience having done some maths as part of their previous academic qualifications, and some people hadn't really touched maths since having left high school. So I think that particularly if you fall into the latter category where you haven't been working with maths for a while, I would definitely spend a good amount of time working through that workbook. It's actually at the end of the day not that long given how far in advance you get it. And if you do sort of 10 pages a day for, 2 weeks, you get through it quite quickly. So that's the first thing. That maths is going to be used in your first principles of financial economics and in the finance course, which you start immediately. So you really want to be comfortable on that front. Then the other thing that you can do, particularly if you haven't been working in a sort of financial field, or if finance hasn't really formed part of any of your previous academic experience, is you can start subscribing to or reading sort of financial articles. So Wall Street Journal, Financial Times. I mean, you don't really even need to do much more than perhaps read through headlines every now and then, but just to get sort of an idea of what's happening out there in economic markets, what are the sort of financial buzzwords that you might be coming into contact with. It's just to get your brain sort of not to go into complete shock when you start hearing all of these financial terms on the daily that perhaps you've never really worked with before. So I'm not suggesting that you sit there and read a financial article and, spend an hour trying to understand the intricacies of it, but really just to try and get sort of like a broader global perspective of sort of key financial concepts. And then on the legal side, I think that until you get here, you might not know what law electives you want to take. And you also, if I recall, I feel like there might have been a shopping period or something like that. There were a couple of days that we could attend different law electives. So I probably wouldn't go to too much effort trying to get yourself, affair with maybe the UK legal perspective for any particular area. Firstly, because I think you might land up changing your mind, and then you might have done a whole lot of unnecessary work. But also because I really think that the law courses start from a zero expectation basis of you understanding the legal position in the UK. You'll find that the MLF is incredibly international, and so is the BCL, as well as the MJUR. So the courses are really sort of directed towards making sure that nobody is excluded from understanding anything on the basis of having come from a different continent or a different country. So yeah, just to speak to the second question a bit in terms of additional preparation that international students should do, I don't think that there is really anything that you would need to do differently as an international student. The MLF is incredibly international. I think in our cohort, we are all international students. A couple of the class had done undergraduate degrees within the UK, but it came from foreign countries previously. So please don't stress if you're someone like me coming from very far away, South Africa, and had, little to no understanding of, the legal setup in the UK. I at no point felt like there was additional work that I should have done before arriving in order to be able to understand my legal courses. Yeah.
Thank you, Lauren. So I think that's right. And the one bit I would add in terms of what you can do to prepare is just to sit down and reflect on what it is that you'd like to get out of the year. Of course, your views can change, but as the students on the cohort have already explained, there is so much on offer in Oxford that it can feel overwhelming. And it's just really, really helpful to have a bit of a sense of what you prioritize, what matters to you, and why, so that you come to Oxford with a little bit of a North Star with respect to how you're going to navigate all of the opportunities that Oxford has to offer. So we already talked a little bit about the mathematics and the pre-sessional course. And I wondered, Guillaume, can you share some thoughts on what the level of maths and what the type of maths is that you are expected to use in the course?
Absolutely. I think it'll be just complementing Laura's response here. I think that would be nothing more complex than the maths that you learned during the years in high school, college entry-level exam type of maths, A-level type of maths that you need to really grasp. Just where you can actually, breeze through the basic concept that you have to go through in finance and first principle of financial economics. I'd say that mostly everybody here has at least seen some of the concepts that are on the maths workbook. It wouldn't really be something extraterrestrial or new for most people here. And even if it were, there's plenty of time for you to get comfortable during this period before the pre-sessional courses in maths, as well as, you know, the financial reporting bits. I think it's also important to notice that you still have some time here to talk with a teacher in the pre-sessional period that you have here. So he's always very available. I don't know if he's still going to be Ken at the point, but Ken is an amazing teacher. He's also has very extensive office hours. He's willing to help everybody that find some difficulties. So I think that if you got in this far, you're probably not going to have any problems grasping the concepts around the maths workbook.
Yeah, thank you, Guillermo. And I think that that's right. And a really important part of what Guillermo mentioned is that those who find the mathematics more challenging and need more time to get back up to speed with the sort of the level that is expected, they don't need to worry because Ken, who teaches mathematics, he offers throughout the first term additional sessions for those who just can use a little bit more help, a little bit more advice, and a little bit more practice. So as long as you're willing to put in the work, we don't think, and that's based on many, many years of experience of teaching this program, that any of you would have any trouble navigating the mathematics that is required. There is, as I said, plenty of support available. The fourth question that we were asked sort of about the pre-arrival prep has to do with changes to the college. And the answer to that question is pretty simple. You cannot change the college once you've been allocated to a college. For those of you who worry about the college that you've been allocated to, my advice would be don't worry. All of the colleges at Oxford offer a phenomenal experience. It is true that the experience and the nature of the experience will differ from college to college. Some of the colleges, for example, emphasize tradition more. Others emphasize the arts more. Others emphasize modernity or philosophy or interaction between disciplines more. Each college has their own sort of basket of amazing experiences. And so between the colleges, of course, these baskets will differ. But as a graduate student at the university, the college, as important as it is socially, is not going to affect the core academics of the program, because all the academics are organized at the faculty and the business school level, not at the college level as it is for undergraduates. So when it comes to the socials, all the colleges have a lot to offer. And as you'll see quickly, when you get to Oxford, many of the students try to explore as many of the colleges as they can. So across the MLF, you'll have exchange dinners, you'll have guest invites to events at different colleges. You'll be able to attend evensongs and make use of the gardens of other colleges. So really don't worry too much about it. But once a decision has been made, it is final. So there is no opportunity to change that. And so that is something that you should consider if you think that the college choice is really important to you. But as I said, I think it shouldn't really be, because it's not critical to the core of the program at all. It is a very, very nice to have. And again, all the students that we've had so far have enjoyed college life, whichever college they were a member of. I should also just mention, it's not on the slide, but the fifth bullet for pre-arrival should be, again, about that deposit. So the deposit deadline is the 10th of May, and it is just important that you do make up your mind by that time. So that's another pre-arrival or even pre-decision consideration for you to keep in mind. I just want to pause here and ask if there are any questions about pre-arrival issues from any of the offer holders. Okay, I don't see any questions. So let's then move to the questions about course content and structure. So many questions that we received were about the finance stream and the courses that are on offer in the finance stream. And I wanted to ask Kishan if you can say something about the finance stream, what your experience has been like, and which courses perhaps you take and why.
Sure. So I feel choosing finance stream is like giving discretion to the MLF students how they want to use the entire course. If they really want to, like for instance, in my case, I have already had 5 years of undergrad in law, and then I practiced around 3 years. So I wanted to put myself in a position where I can learn the financial side of things because I've never had any exposure to accounting, and that's why I chose finance stream. So I think it's a platform for you to choose how you want to utilize the entire course. And if you go for finance stream, I think Tom mentioned earlier that it will come with corporate valuation along with one other finance elective in place of one law elective. So two courses in place of one law elective. And in corporate valuation, what you can expect is specifically would be how exactly you're going to value a company, and it will sort of expose you to different sorts of financial valuation techniques, how exactly companies are valued in the financial markets, DCF or relative valuation, those sort of things. And you will also get to learn learn a lot about Excel, how exactly to use it to come up with calculations and valuations. So I think it's a good course to understand some of the most basic things which sort of regulate the financial market. Other than that, you also get to choose from finance elective, like I've chosen entrepreneurial finance, which is run in a mix with the MBA. So it's a good chance to attend the same class with a completely different cohort where you can sort of exchange your ideas, because assessment is also something which is assessed on a group basis. You're working together in groups with MBAs or MFAs for that matter, and you come up with ideas. Because all of these are assessed projects, so you have to work in a team to come up with your own final products. And I would also mention that there's an option to choose to be a part of the finance lab. I think it's also pretty useful if you are thinking about joining the finance stream, because it sort of gives you a chance to interact with PE professional or investment banking professionals, where you can understand what is exactly happening in the market. So it really gives you the tools to sort of be up to date once you come into the course and choose finance stream in the Hillary term. So I mean, it's something which you can use as per your own requirements. But having said that, I think it's a good balance of law as well, because you have to do one law course mandatorily, even if you choose finance stream. So not to take that away from the fact that you are doing, both law and finance together.
Yeah, thank you for that. And in terms of which courses will be offered for the next year's cohort, both for the law courses and for the finance courses, we do not expect major changes from this year. So you can go to the MLF website and have a look at what kind of electives are on offer on the law and on the finance side. But we don't know definitively yet which courses will be on offer, because that decision is only made towards the end of this academic year. So you'll be aware of the courses on offer well before you come to Oxford, but not before the deposit deadline. But as I said, at this moment, we do not expect any major changes relative to this year. So I think that covers the questions about course content and structure. Are there any questions from any offer holder about this set of issues? All right. In that case, let's talk a bit about careers. So when it comes to careers, many of you asked what it is that MLFs end up doing after they graduate, and also what exactly the value of the program looks like post-graduation. And I can say something briefly about the employment prospect. So, of course, anything we say about employment prospects should be caveated by the fact that the general market conditions have of course a major impact on where the MLF alumni end up. So in years, for example, where the London market is very strong, Many people will end up in London. When the London market is comparatively weak, more of the MLF graduates ends up elsewhere in other major financial centers or major financial hubs elsewhere around the world. What that tells you, though, is that the reputation of the program and the reputation of Oxford, obviously, is incredibly strong globally. So your opportunity set really is global once you leave. In terms of where most of the graduates end up, slightly over half end up going into the legal profession straight after graduation. And about 20 to 30% ends up going to a career in finance. That can be at an investment bank, at a private equity house, at an asset manager, you name it. And about 10% or so ends up in academia or in government. Those figures shift a little bit if you look, say, 3 years after graduation. So 3 years after graduation, a larger proportion of the alumni moves out of the legal sector into a, say, more entrepreneurial position or into a governmental position. We've had an alumnus who was just included in Forbes 30 under 30 because he met his business partner and now wife at Oxford, and they started a biotech company, which is very successful. So they became entrepreneurs. We have alumni who end up being the advisors to presidents, prime ministers, ministers of finance. We have alumni who had a private equity or hedge funds, private equity houses or hedge funds. So it's incredibly diverse. And I think it is important to differentiate between what happens straight after graduation. As I said, many people start their careers in the legal industry, slightly over half, and to look at what happens a bit further out. Because, of course, that first move is just that. It's a first move that is part of a much longer career trajectory for which the MLF equips you. Throughout that career journey, it is important to stress, again, that you have the benefit of the support from that alumni cohort. And that is a very, very supportive cohort, which is also, as I said, very diverse in terms of where they've ended up and what kind of perspectives that they can offer. For the second question, I wanted to ask Lauren whether you can reflect a bit on what the MLF offers for practicing transactional lawyers.
Sure. So I think that, well, on a first basis for practicing transactional lawyers, it could affect your day-to-day practice by moving you overseas. I was working in South Africa, and now I am hoping to work in London afterwards. So I'm expecting that to impact my day-to-day practice. Obviously, there'll also be a shift in jurisdiction. In terms of the laws. But I think on a more sort of day-to-day basis, what I'm going to take away from this program is it's going to be the lessons that I think come out of LECT, which is the sort of core course, which is the law and economics of corporate transactions. It teaches you a new way of analyzing the type of transactions that I was working on, mergers, acquisitions, take privates. And it teaches you to think about them in different ways. For me, I found it to be very behavioral, sort of like what are the key sort of drivers to think about in these kind of transactions? What are the type of problems we are solving when we use different types of modeling for these transactions? And I've found the LECT course to be, so far, it's still ongoing, to be the course that I think I'm going to think back to the most when I start working again. You can also just see how practical it is from the case studies that we do in this term, which is Trinity term now. Every week we focus on a different case study, which are normally based around they are based around corporate transactions, such as a hostile takeover. And we work with practitioners in the industry. So, for example, I'm doing hostile takeovers, and we have practitioners from Slaughter and May, I believe, coming to speak around a particular case that they worked on a couple of years back. And we're analyzing it, but not from a legal perspective. We're analyzing it from kind of economics, behavioral, rational choice perspective, to try and summarize what's ultimately quite a broad approach to our learnings in this course. Yeah, so I think it's almost like a nuance in thinking. It's thinking about things from a slightly different, out-of-the-box perspective that ultimately will affect the way you do your job. It will affect the kind of provisions that you put in a contract, because you're thinking about, well, what am I actually doing when I put in this one-liner here? What kind of implications is this going to have for my clients outside of a court of law? How is this motivating the other party to behave? I'm really enjoying that perspective. Yeah, and that's what I think will be my biggest takeaway on a day-to-day basis moving forward.
And what is important there, and I think Lauren's examples illustrated this nicely, is that towards the end of the program, you're really thinking on an equal footing with the very senior practitioners who ran the deals that we discuss in Trinity term. And the deals are very diverse. So hostile takeovers, issuances of securities, asset management questions. Sometimes we have bailouts that we cover, or other government programs. And the level is such, the level of our students and the level of the teaching is such that towards the end of the year, you can really go head to head with these leading practitioners about the deals that they ran, ask them critical questions, and have these really fruitful interactions. And that shows in how you then can present yourself when you apply for jobs. And the success of that, again, shows in the uptake of MLF graduates in very senior positions. Straight out of graduation, or sort of on the medium term after graduation. The third question that was asked about careers had to do with whether people who previously were trained as lawyers or were working as lawyers can be competitive after the MLF in the financial sector. And the answer there is absolutely yes. So once you enter the MLF, one thing that's really tricky, and I refer to this at the beginning, is that the deadlines for the finance jobs are very, very sort of immediate. So you come to Oxford in October, and the application deadlines for many of the major internships or jobs in the financial industry are straight away in October. So we do our very best to prepare you for those deadlines. But obviously, that does require, for those who are interested in that sector, a sort of immediate, rapid launch into a new industry. So what we tend to see are sort of two paths. So some graduates of the MLF immediately go into the financial sector, and other MLFs go into another type of job, say a legal job, or an analyst job, and then a few years later find themselves to be completely competitive in the financial sector job. So it is not always the case that there is an immediate success, but those who wanted to enter into the financial industry on balance have managed either directly after the MLF or a few years later to end up there. And as I said, sometimes the outcomes can be very surprising. One of our graduates is the chief financial officer of a major hedge fund. Many others run trading desks. Some run major multi-billion-dollar funds. And so there are definitely good examples of them. And all of these people that I just mentioned previously were legal professionals. So they're definitely very, very good examples of alumni who have made that switch. And as I said, about 20 to 30% every year goes there straight away. Then finally on funding and the Oxford experience. So we talked quite a bit already about what the Oxford experience is like, but many of you had questions about scholarships and funding opportunities. And there are sort of two pathways that we can take. So once you have, after your application for the MLF, you were immediately considered automatically for a whole range of scholarships offered by the university and by the faculty. Those considerations are in some cases still ongoing, but they're for the most part beyond our control. So we can't speak to the timelines. We can't always speak to the probability of success, because the decisions are made not by the MLF team, but by another team in the university. And that's, of course, by design. There's then also a category of scholarships and funding opportunities that appear throughout the year and that you can apply to. Most notably, there is hardship funding available for those who, for whatever reason, end up in financial difficulties while they're in Oxford, while they are on course. I don't know if there's anything else, Catherine or Charlotte, that we can say about scholarships and funding opportunities at this point, but I think that's pretty much the situation.
Absolutely. The only thing I would say is also keep an eye on your college communications, because there may be college-based funding opportunities that you can apply for.
Yeah, that's a really good suggestion. So that's in terms of the scholarship and funding opportunities. Then the final question about the Oxford experience was about the work-life balance during the year. And I feel that that's not a question I should answer. So I'm asking Kishan whether you can say something about what your experience has been like.
Sure. I'm conscious of the time that we are exceeding, so I'll keep it very short. I think coming from a common law background where I worked for around 3 years, I was working in a law firm where you're always trying to hit a billable hour target. And you are always confident that, you are taking on an academic program where you have to just study, and there is no pressure from your boss where you have to complete your deliverables. So I think that sort of perception really went away when I arrived at Oxford and started the MLF program, because the program is, in my personal opinion, it's definitely demanding. I genuinely feel that it requires you and it keeps you on your toes to do all sorts of requirements that it has, whether it be seminars, tutorials, or group works. It's not like a general LLM program where you are doing, say, a course and just sitting for the written exam. You have to be indulged throughout the term to eventually be assessed for a specific course, if that makes sense. So it really keeps you on your toes, as I said, to stand up to the expectation of the program. And having said that, I think it also comes with a high flexibility where the faculty is very open, and at least they're considerate in accommodating any sort of contingency that you might have in terms of completing a tutorial. So not to say that if you have something to give, say, in a couple of days, then the faculty will not consider your situation in giving you a deadline. I think it's a program which really, it really keeps you on your toes, and it really eventually puts you on a pedestal where you can say that, you can work through a program and, come up with the ultimate product if it requires.
Thank you, Kishan. I don't know if any of the other current students wants to say anything about work-life balance. Lauren.
Yeah, I think that also similar to Kishan, having worked beforehand, I've certainly found the MLF to have been a less demanding experience. I've certainly had more free time to play with, and especially because, returning to university, it's been really pleasant to be in control of your schedule largely. Again, you decide when you want to work, and if there's a day that you are just not feeling very well, you can take a bit of a rest day and come back at it the next day. And then obviously, because there is just so much that Oxford has to offer from an extracurricular perspective, I would really encourage you to make sure that you don't turn the MLF year into just a continuous sort of working experience. It would be a great pity, I think, if that was if you spent your entire time here just studying. There's just so much that Oxford offers that I think is worth exploring outside of the academic program. And if you work well, manage your time well, there should be no reason why you are up until midnight every night or not sleeping properly. I think you can have a really healthy, fun year if you work properly and manage your time well.
Thank you, Lauren. So I think probably in summary, we can say it's an incredibly rich year. It's an incredibly rewarding year, and it is intense. But ultimately, you're sort of the author of what happens. And as Lauren and Kishan both emphasized, there's a lot happening within the program, and it's not an easy course. It is a demanding course, and it's demanding in a variety of ways. So you have the demands that come with legal studies at the highest level, but you also have the demands that come with studying finance and economics at the highest levels, and those demands are different. So depending on what you're comfortable with, you'll be challenged more or less by different parts of the course. But it's definitely the intention of the program to also allow you to explore all the other parts of the Oxford experience to the full extent. So we do always enjoy to see many of the students being very active in the student societies, in sports, in college life, and that definitely has been the case this year and with the students that you have met today. I'm aware that we're over time by 11 minutes. We need to wrap up in the next few minutes. So before we do, I just want to check in that there are no other urgent questions from any of the offer holders. I see there are quite a few in the chat, which we're trying to answer. But if there are any other questions for us, please do let us know.
There was just one brief one that I've seen you put a note on, Tom, as well. Thank you. But Guillaume has very kindly offered to speak to the finance lab question. If that's okay.
Yes, Guillaume, would you mind?
Absolutely. So I've seen this question relating to how to prepare for the finance lab. So Tom already, obviously there's the math components of it. You have to at least be familiar with some basic concepts related to finance, but you're going to receive a communication probably late June, and you're supposed to apply for the finance lab until very early July. And then you're going to be granted, if you pass, there's going to be a few questions that you're supposed to answer. And if those questions are satisfactory, if it means that you have some level of familiarity, financial world, you're going to then be granted access to a platform called Wall Street Prep. It's quite famous. It's generally used to prepare people for interviews in the financial market to get jobs in this space. So you have that preparation there. At least when it was for me, I had to really familiarize myself with Excel, which is very important. Excel shortcuts, how to operate it, how basic operations work, and even a bit more advanced ones. And secondly, how does a few specific areas work within finance? So in my case, I had to learn a little bit how to deal in private equity, and how is the general structure of that. So these preparations usually come after you do this little quiz relating to your familiarity with finance for the finance lab. That's just my 2 cents there.
Thank you, Guillermo. So I think on that note, we have to wrap up this session. It's been a huge pleasure to get the chance to share some of the insights about the program with you and to respond to the many questions that we have received. We hope this was a helpful session for you. If you have any further questions, please do feel free to reach out to the MLF office, and they will do their best to get back to you as soon as they can. And needless to say, we hope to see you all next year in Oxford for a year that, in terms of legal studies, in terms of financial and economic studies, and just in terms of sort of an overall experience, will really be a fantastic one. And I can say that, of course, as someone teaching on the program, but also as an alumnus of the program many, many years ago, that it is really a fantastic experience and one that I think you will not regret going for. So we hope to see many of you in Oxford this autumn. And again, please do not hesitate to reach out if you have any questions or any concerns. We'd be very happy to help. And as you've noticed, many of the current students, they are also happy to help if you have any questions. And with that, we're wrapping up this virtual open day. Thank you all very much. And again, hopefully we'll see you in person in Oxford later this year.